What's up, everybody? My name is Joshua Yoder, and welcome to the Joshua Yoder Show. Today is going to be a kind of a very special and interesting topic for me and my guest today. This year, we'll be marking the 15 years since the merging of Indian Valley and Lewistown to what we now know as today the Mifflin County High School. Well, and today, my guest is someone that knows a lot of history of that and even the current history of today. And his name is Kenny Varner. What's up, Kenny?
Hey, Josh, for having me.
Oh man, thank you so much for coming here, especially with this topic, because it's crazy to think like it's already been 15 years since the debut of the Mifflin County Huskies.
I know, hasn't
Yeah, no, it was definitely it's definitely been an interesting ride, that's for sure.
it?
I mean, especially with us. I mean, you obviously have way more experience than I do, when it comes to the rivalries and all that good stuff. But you know, looking back, it's definitely kind of a fun journey and interesting to see where everything has come from, is it not?
Oh, it has, especially growing up in Lewistown and going through years with Chief Logan and Kish. And then my senior year was the last year of the three schools. And then the following year, they emerged to Indian Valley. So that was something that wasn't unfamiliar to me when they did that 15 years ago and finally put together Indian Valley and Lewistown. Um, so it's had its good ups and downs with through the years, but I think that it's been a good transition. Um, of the two schools or of the two schools, and the biggest fear looking back that a lot of the people had was how would the two come together as one school, because there was such a rivalry between Lewistown and Indian Valley, and always great games sports wise between the two. If one team was down a little bit, the other one would be up. It was it was a fun time. There was uh, a lot of good times, like you said, uh, through those years before it finally did merge.
Yeah, and if for those of you that may not know, if you look at my avatar, you can take a guess which side I was on.
Yes, the old classic Panther.
Indeed.
I have a little bit of trivia for you, real quick, while we're talking about mascots.
Why not? Go for it.
Do you know who created the Husky logo?
I did not.
Okay. Well, I will give you a hint. He is the proud father of two cross country kids. One just won a state championship, and the other one has had a great college career. Does that give you any of a hint on who it is?
Would it be Smith?
No, it was Todd Cubison,
Oh, Cobinson. Okay.
father. Yeah,
Oh my goodness. Wow.
he was a Panther. So just a little trivia there for people.
No, that's awesome. That's always cool, fun little stuff like that. And actually, speaking of, little trivia stuff, Kenny, excuse me, Kenny. Sorry, I haven't. It's been a while since I heard from Carson either, too. But I digress. But yeah, I couldn't believe this. But 50 years ago was when Lewistown first made its debut. Can you
Wow.
believe 1976?
Mm,
So like, and then Indian Valley didn't come along till 1989.
yeah. Yep. I like Greg said, I graduated in '88, and they were preparing for everything, just like they did for Mifflin County. They were worried about how things would go between Kish and Chief Logan students. So I guess there's always been that fear when you have something like the Penn Highlands experiment back in the early 70s that didn't work out quite so much. And they ended up going back to the three school system.
Yeah, man. And and for me personally, like it was definitely a fun time because, I had an older brother that went to Lewistown, and you definitely got a sense of the rivalry, not just in like sports, but like in a lot of, well, in a lot of things as well. And a lot of the kids knew each other. And to be honest with you, I always thought the rivalry was something that made really the community better.
Oh, it did. And, there was a time, before cell phones and before, back in the dark ages, whenever I grew up, that you talked to people, you knew people, you know, from out in, the Chief Logan area. You hung out with them, but boy, on game days, especially the Iron Kettle game weeks, you stayed as far away from the rivalry territory as you could because things used to get kind of crazy. And it was a fun crazy stuff, that you wouldn't see anymore, but at the time it was fun to
Yeah.
grow up.
Yeah, no, I can attest to that because, like, I had cousins that played football or wrestled, or played other sports. And then, when my older brother got there, he graduated in 2004. He got to witness some really good runs from like the women and men's basketball, especially had some great runs, back in the early 2000s, with players like Alicia SB, Jenna Craig, just to name excuse me, Jenny Cunningham, just to name a few. Like he got to see a lot of that craziness, and that's like my first opening to a lot of stuff. And then, of course, we have the state, back-to-back championships in the late '90s.
Mm, yeah.
It's definitely was a fun time, and of course, the last state title that Lewistown ever got was the baseball team in 2002.
Oh, that was a fun day. Yeah.
You can still watch it on YouTube.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Yeah, that was my first real playoff state championship game, and I was working at the County Observer at the time, and I was really nervous. Didn't know where I was going. They didn't have the maps like they do on your phones nowadays. So I figured, well, I'm gonna follow the bus. So I followed the bus, and uh the players stopped somewhere in between um here in Williamsport, and I was able to watch the team warm up a little bit before game time, and that was pretty cool. Uh,
Dude, that's awesome. And to be honest with you, that's actually really clever. I never thought of that. Like, well, if you know when the bus is leaving, let's just follow the bus.
yeah, there was two ways back then: follow the bus, or this was my trick. I would find, if I was driving, getting closer to the gig, I would find somebody that would pass you and have a sticker of the team you're covering and follow them the rest of the way. That happened quite a few times as well. So, yeah, technology, I love it now.
Well, it's good when it's helpful. When it doesn't, then you're really screwed.
Yeah, but then you have someone to blame, the computer. So,
That's very true. But yeah, going back to the Lewistown Indian Valley thing, one of the things too that I always thought was interesting was they always shared the same field with Mitchell Field.
mm-hmm.
And it's like they would trade places, back and forth. Like, okay, like you'll be home this week, next week will be Indian Valley be home. So I always thought that was cool. And at least maybe like if you got bored and wanted to do something, there was always like a football game you could go to.
Oh yeah, that was actually a sports reporter's dream. Have to go anywhere. You didn't have to travel outside your area to cover them. There was always a local team to cover at Mitchell Field, and you saw some good football and you saw some not so good football, but what you did see every week though was you saw the local kids giving it all they had, and you know leaving it all on the field.
Yeah, and I always thought it'd be cool, being a reporter myself and a writer. I always thought it'd be cool to, even back in the day when there used to be four schools, it seemed like you can always cover multiple teams at multiple nights of the week.
Mm-hmm.
So I can imagine it'd probably be easier on you guys to have like, well, Indian Valley and Lewistown were playing against each other in this sport this day, and then this week. So it's like, oh, it'd be easy to cover, huh?
Yeah, the whole, and when they played each other, rivalry week. Oh my gosh, that was so cool because he didn't have to travel very far because the team's what 3 or 4 miles difference between the two schools. So it was, yeah, it was exciting. It was like I said, and you had the juniata teams, and that was pretty much your bread and butter coverage wise. But back to the rivalry games. I don't know if you remember this, but when the two teams would meet, it didn't matter what sport, it didn't matter what they were playing for. The gyms were packed. The fields was packed. Everybody that was anybody were at these games, and it was just a great, fun atmosphere.
Yeah, no, I can definitely attest to that because like especially like when it comes to football, but then like when wrestling and basketball would get involved, holy moly, were those gyms packed! And let's be totally honest, Indian Valley and Lewistown didn't necessarily have big gyms.
No, no, Indian Valley, you were right there. There was not a lot of room from the out of bounds to the bleachers. And the same was to say on the sidelines when you're taking pictures. It easily hit the wall after going in for a layup, if you were pushed a little bit.
Yeah, or like you're trying to run to stop a fast break and your momentum just carries you.
Yeah, yep. And then there's a big dent in the door where your head hits as you're, yeah, pretty small gym for that Indian Valley. And then if you get them packed with people, a lot of times, even in the coldest of winters, they'd open the windows, up top just to cool it down in there. So,
Yeah, and if I'm and correct me if I'm wrong, Kenny, but you were Lewistown too, correct?
yeah. Hmm.
Okay. Well, the reason why I asked this is so like I was Lewistown myself. I graduated in 2009 prior to the merger. So, but my question to you is when I first started, it was already Mifflin County. So I have no idea what it was like to actually, see the rivalry as a reporter from both sides at this point. What was your first experience like seeing both an Indian Valley and Lewistown game?
Well, this would actually, do you mean as a reporter or as in my lifetime?
Re- Well, if you want to do both, that's fine. I was thinking reporter, but if you want to do both,
Well, like I said, growing up, I grew up, was born in Lewistown, grew up in Lewistown. Um, I guess as a kid, my some of my favorite Friday nights were, we had a little ritual in my house. We go to Reds for supper, and then we'd head to the football game for Lewistown, no matter how they were doing. That was always special to me because it was almost like you know, going to your favorite movie or something, almost like it's a little bit of uh, just a special occasion you look forward to every week. And as I went up through the system, and I played football. Well, I was a member of the football team. I did a lot of the guarding the bench, sitting on the sidelines watching, but uh, it was always you always had a lot of pride wearing those jerseys on Fridays and hitting the pep rallies and having the people cheer when you came out. That was something always special to me. And then when you cover it and you grew up around it, it's kind of like you've made it. Then you know what I mean. These kids that are coming out, you're it's your responsibility to report the game and see the game and make sure they get the credit they get, and that's always been special too. But just at different phases meant different things. As a kid, it was looking up to the players and having time with my parents. As a football player, experiencing it and enjoying the fact that you had pride for your team, and then covering it was make sure you get it right, make sure you know. So I guess that would be it in a nutshell.
Yeah, and what was your first like experience covering an Indian Valley Lewistown game for the first time?
Oh my gosh, it was like Christmas. Because see, I had worked for the Sentinel as a stringer first couple of years under Brian and Scott Franco, and they did me the hugest favor. They sent me down into the Juniata, East Juniata football area to cover because I could learn down there, you know. Um, and then whenever I moved over to the County Observer as the sports editor, uh, I was able to come up and cover it, and uh, it was like being a minor league baseball player, and then finally hitting the major leagues. It was just that big of a difference. Not to take away from Juniata County, because I enjoyed my time down there and covering it, but it was like this was my backyard. My parents and my families, they're all going to read this article. So it was really special because my whole family played sports, and I was able to, you know, cover things that I had actually went to, you know, and I'd been not played in it, but watched from the sidelines the different Iron Kettle games. So,
And not to mention, along with the iron kettle, we also had the iron skillet.
oh yeah, I'll tell you what, that's one thing that I won't forget because some of the girls, I mean, well, I'm just gonna say it, all of the girls that played in that the Iron Skillet game. I'll tell you what, it was flag football, but it was more rough than that. There were some football tackles on there that would have made the guys proud at the time. Those the animosity and stuff on that field at the time, man, I'll tell you, it brought out the best football and some of the funnest games to watch. I always enjoyed that. Mrs. Shear was the one that was in charge of that and created that, and she did a great job year after year. But yeah, that was probably uh, was always a fun time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for me personally, it was always good to like. I mean, I've never been more into like the heated rivalry stuff, but it's always fun to like beat a rival. Well, but just every time like you see Lewistown defeat Indian Valley, and I'm sure it's probably the same for the people of Indian Valley as well. Winning something, you're like, "Ha, we got them this year." Or especially if you sweep them, because you have that one game you're home and then the other game you're away. You definitely always had like, at least in my mind, you're like, okay, we got them this time, and if we can get them both times, it's even better.
Mm-hmm. And then you also had the underdog story. You always hear the old adage, throw out the scores when these two get together. You know, that is so true when those two got together. Uh, it didn't matter, how bad either or how good either team was. There would be the closest contest. You know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, definitely. It always felt that way. Even if you felt like overall, like say, like you had the better team,
Mm,
like you said, that goes out the window because it just always seems like those games got close or something crazy happens.
right. Exactly.
And speaking of crazy, one of the craziest things I've ever experienced was really my first year at Lewistown was really the last time Lewistown won the Iron Kettle in football. That was guys like Chris Tressler, Mike Baker. Shout out to both those guys, and thank you for helping me with my story. they um they were a big part of that win, and that was like, and at the time I didn't really get it because I was a young kid and going through stuff, and I didn't realize like the how big of the history it was, and like this was like the first time they have ever like won the Iron Kettle and really had a winning record in like 30 years. So it was just like mind blowing to me. And then just to, after the game was over, and it was a close one as well, it was 16-13, the final of that game. And then just to see everyone just storm the field like that, it was, insane to me.
Yeah, yeah. Um, One of the craziest moments that I can remember as a student at it was it was actually the Friday of a Lewistown Chief Logan game. And back then they would go through the around the other school area and beep their horn and and just I'll say, you guys, just back and forth banner. Some poor soul came up from Chief Logan. They had a something about Chief Logan rules or something. They were holding it outside the car, and they came up through uh, Mifflin County or Lewistown High School's little roundabout. And what they didn't know is how to get out. And as they slowed down, the students went around their car, and you would have swore whoever those kids were, I thought they saw the life pass, before their eyes.
Oh no.
Now nothing ever happened because the teachers were out, but for a couple minutes, I bet some of those Mingo fans were wondering what the heck was going to happen to them, you know. But nothing did, and it was fun, and nobody got hurt, and a lot of jokes and a lot of pranks, and just kids, and something that really is missing from I love Mifflin County High School, but they don't have a rivalry. There's no rivalry with anybody, no rival. State college, but it's not like the days of old when you
No,
have
and
way.
that's oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. When you have someone 3 miles away, 4 miles away.
Yeah, no, I can agree to that because, and to me, I've always felt, like too, like we all knew each other too. And it seemed like to me, and I've actually talked with some people like, that were part of like, the heyday of the two schools. They would say, like, yeah, even after all that, like say like Indian Valley were like making a run. Like there were some people from Lewistown that went down to support them.
Yeah, yeah. It's like kind of like big brother, little brother. You can pick on your brother, and they can pick back at you, and you guys could fight and do whatever. But when it comes time to defend, if someone else comes over and does it, you know, you guys back each other. And that's the way it was in sports. Even though, say, Lewistown didn't go very far, but like you said, Indian Valley did. There a lot of people did. The whole area, they didn't care. There are kids, there are players. They're from Mifflin County, you know. You take off the fan banner from, while these other teams are the other teams going up through, and you root for them, and that's the way it was, and it was fun. You might not be getting the championship this year, but you want to see you want to see the other team get it.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was like as weird as this may sound, it felt like it brought, everyone together, easier than like say even like, nowadays, even though like you said, like we both love it. We both like Mifflin County. So, but it just in a weird way, it almost felt like, we fought each other, but then when someone else succeeded, it's like we still all succeeded, as weird as it may sound.
Well, I'll tell you what, when Lewistown in the late '90s were making their run in girls basketball, and even the first year with the boys basketball, I remember when the girls won it and they had a parade in town. It was as crowded, if not more crowded than an October Halloween parade is now. I mean, people just flocked the square. They did a parade through town, and I remember they came off of the Walnut Street exit, came up through Walnut Street, and people were on the sidewalks watching, cheering, waving at the girls. And that's something that you saw 2 years in a row, but you didn't see it again until you know the boys did it in baseball. But those are those are the moments where that there are Indian Valley fans also celebrating the victory, because inevitably it was a victory for Mifflin County, you know, for our kids, our players, our athletes.
Well, and you could probably attest to this more than I can because you always have more experience than me. But like there were some good coaching battles too. Like there was obviously for me, it was always been more like Herto and Kodish.
Hmm.
And of course I had coach, Hopple in baseball and football had some, their coaches as well. Has there been any like coaches that you always like to see go at it, especially if it's Lewistown, Indian Valley?
Um, yeah, I would say Lewistown and um Indian Valley softball when Coach Eckley was there. And oh my gosh, you're gonna have to edit this because I'm trying to remember her name, and Janie Carolus.
Oh, okay.
Um, some of the best softball that you'd see. Um, Janie was a great coach for Indian Valley, as everybody know, and um, so yeah, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed oh, I whenever Matt Shoemaker and Aaron Gingrich
Oh, okay.
and basketball, boys basketball. Uh, there those were the long-standing ones. Um, I loved covering Indian Valley baseball too. With legendary coach Buck Ryden,
Okay.
nicest guy you'd ever meet, and whoever was the coach at Lewistown it would be at the time. That was always a game of respect. You know what I mean? The two teams respected each other. They'd play hard, but then afterwards, you know. So, um, those were just a couple that I can remember. I'm sure there was more. Um, but yeah, Kevin Kodish and Roger. That went on for many years. That was back when I think Roger head coached Kish for a year or so before coming on to Chief Logan, or before going on to Indian Valley. Um, so he had been around with against Kevin for the longest time.
Yeah,
And
those two always seem to be at each other's hips sometimes, huh?
yeah, yeah. And the two demeanors of the coaches were very pleasant, very fun to be around. Those are the kind of coaches you like interviewing afterwards, no matter if it was a loss or a win. They'd always have um, something to say about their kids, and made it very easy for us to get information and stuff. So those are the coaches you appreciate.
No, absolutely, and I can attest with Herto because he was a big part of helping me out with some of my stories, and he's a big part of the Hall of Fame now.
Yeah, he would sit down with me actually and talk for about 10 minutes. I wouldn't have to ask him one question. He'd just sit down you know,
No,
and back, and back
absolutely.
the recorders. So you're writing all this stuff down, and oh, yep, he would be very patient. And if you got something wrong, he'd tell you about it, and he wouldn't hold it against you. You know.
Yeah, no, he was definitely one of those coaches I loved to interview when I was covering Mifflin County because you could just give him a couple questions and he just goes from there, and then you're really like, oh, thanks. and that's it. But let's get to the unfortunately, the good times wouldn't last. Eventually, the idea of merger came along, and to be honest with you, Kenny, the first time I even heard about a merger or there's like a potential of a merging between Indian Valley and Lewistown was, well, I graduated in 2009. That was when I first heard about it because, I was graduating. I didn't really think about it nor cared at the time, but I just heard like, hey, did you hear that they might be like trying to merge schools and stuff?
Mm.
And I was just like, really? Like, again, I didn't really think about it because I honestly didn't think it was going to happen. But when was the first time you heard about it?
Oh, it had to be probably right before they well there has been rumors for years about that before it actually happened. You'd hear it, but you didn't see anything happening, so you're just like, yeah, this is being forced. This isn't really happening. But I think the moment when they decided to go with a new school for Indian Valley, that there's a possibility that they would combine then, because it was like the stage was setting up, you know, and you could see it align. But no one ever said anything, and I believe that it wasn't until the school was almost built until they finally released the idea of merging, if I'm correct. So um, I didn't actually believe it until the school was actually being built.
Well, yeah, and like, and during some of my research with some of these things, and talking to some people who, not trying to get anybody in trouble, so they'll remain nameless, but I was told that the Mifflin County School District was in pretty big debt coming from 2008, during the recession, and from there to 2011, like there was a lot of money that was missing. There were like several $1 million in the hole. And then by 2010, that's when people were kind of like, I think this is going to happen. And like the rumors were turning into reality. And then eventually it happened. So it was definitely a shock to me because I didn't really officially find out till like a friend of mine had asked me for my opinion on something. And they were asking me, like, do you think we should call our school the Ducks, the Huskies, or the Patriots? And I'm like,
Oh,
what?
I remember that the Patriots. Oh,
Yeah. Well, it's just like I asked her, I'm like, Why are you asking me for my opinion on that?" And he goes, "Oh, you don't know the schools are merging."
mm,
And I was like, "Oh, this is really happening. This is legit happening." Like, okay, I didn't think it was possible, but apparently it was. And then it just it didn't become surreal till like 2000, like 2010, 2011, where you had the final football game, and then all the basketball stuff was finishing up, and then like when spring ended, it was just like, wow, it's over. Because do you remember the last of the Panther shirts and the last of the Warrior shirts and all that stuff?
yeah. Hmm.
Like, it didn't really hit me until that happened. Like,
Right.
until I started seeing those shirts, I was like, man, this is wow, this is interesting. This is the end of an era. Like, I didn't think it was possible for it to happen, but
Yeah, I wasn't too sure it was going to happen, because I didn't have any knowledge of any of the stuff that you had said about being in the hole or anything. I just knew from a sports standpoint um that you could kind of tell, you know, that things were going that way. Like I said, that the school was getting done, and they didn't. I don't believe at the time they had anything on the middle of the court, and that was kind of surprising. Uh,
oh,
so
really? So you went to cover a game and there was like nothing?
this was before anything had happened. They were finishing up the school, but they didn't have anything um established. Like there was no Indian Valley thing said anywhere from what I understand. You know what I mean? There was no go in the middle of the basketball court saying Indian Valley or anything,
There was just no logo.
no logo. And now that's all I know. I could be wrong about that, and I send them my apologies if I'm not. That was what was told to me. Um, I had never with my own eyes saw the courts, so um, just take it as an old guy believing you know, believe in gossip or rumors, or, whatever. But that's what I was told to, and
Yeah, it was just I don't know, it was just bizarre to me because like I kind of well, if anyone knows my history, I kind of had like a up and down kind of history, being in Lewistown, but still I didn't think the schools would merge like that. And then it just when it happened and you see everyone walking around like they're the last of this, and then
hmm
it didn't really fit until like they said, okay, we're gonna be called the Huskies, we're gonna be, black, white, and purple,
hmm
which I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. This is really happening. But let me ask you this, Kenny. What did you think of when they officially were going to merge and they were going to call themselves the Mifflin County Huskies? What did you think of the color scheme?
I loved it. I loved it because there wasn't one Keller from either school except for maybe the black with Indian Valley. So there was no. It was a completely neutral set of colors. Um, I personally like purple, so that didn't hurt either. But I just think you put purple and black together, it looks cool. So uh, the color scheme never bothered me. I thought it was great. I thought it was neutral, and I thought maybe when these two teams come together, they can see that not neither team is looked at more favorable. It'd be just coming in, on an even keel.
Yeah, I always looked at it like, okay, the white was Lewistown, black was Indian Valley, and then if you mix the blue and the red together, it makes purple. So I just assumed that that was what the color scheme was.
Thought of that, but yeah.
But so like I said, you and Carson have been reporting longer than I have. What was the first year like in your mind when it officially became Mifflin County? What was that like for you?
It was fun. It was refreshing. Um, and like I said, the biggest thing that people were worried about um were kids getting along. Some of them were afraid of losing, like you're losing kids. Um, but um, like you're like on a basketball team, you combine two schools and you have your like seventh and eighth person on the bench, you know, maybe not with the merger, may not have a spot. But little things like that they worried about, and for the most part, I think everything went smooth. It was exciting. The kids were excited. They were inspired. The football team, I believe, did well starting off. Um, so it was just like a refreshing restart to um, to a new sports area. I mean, sports history and you know, local sport. You know,
Yeah, and it's even weirder too, because like, talking with some, former coaches, they said like they had like kids like trying to play sports, but got cut because obviously there's so many kids wanting to play, but they got
right,
cut, but they were starters, the year before when the schools were separate. So I was
right,
like, man, that ought to like that had to have been a pain in the butt trying to figure that one out.
and it was for a couple years, and then what was really great is they started adding sports. You know,
Yeah,
uh,
no, absolutely. I,
and
I agree with that.
so um, and then they are continuing actually to There's rumors about a possible flag football team um, in the future. There's just different things that you know that keep the kids out on the field. And
Keep them active.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with it, but I just couldn't imagine like some of these kids that like geez, just a year ago we were rivals against each other. Now all of a sudden we're on the same field. Like, can you imagine like some of those kids that like probably came in late in Lewistown, Indian Valley, and then all of a sudden they're like, wait, now we're Mifflin County? Like that, I can't even imagine like how confusing a lot of those first couple years were for these kids.
Yeah, well, I think it would be tougher for the coaches trying to integrate both systems, keep both sides happy. You know what I mean? Try to, because you got different kids, and if you're a coach that coached for Lewistown and you came over and now you have Indian Valley kids, how do you keep that across the board so you don't have to you don't have parents saying, "Oh, you're only playing so and so because of they were in Lewistown," and it was a I'll tell you, it had to have been very tough on coaches. Uh, but all in all, I think they did an adamant job. They, you know, for a usually when new schools get together and merge, it takes a couple of years for the sports to follow up and be, you know, good. And I think a lot of the sports we were good with coming out of the block, especially field hockey. I think field hockey was the biggest beneficiary um, of the merger.
Yeah, and honestly, like, how do you go about coaches too? That probably had to been a nightmare to figure that one out.
Oh yeah, well, that was, I believe, the school board went and everyone had to interview for the job, and I would not have wanted to be on that school board because you had a lot of great coaches and not enough slots. So what do you do? You're right. It would have been tough,
Yeah, and to be honest with you, it seemed like right away, at least at first, I should say, it seemed like things worked out, but definitely there's definitely some growing pains trying to build up one school. Well, throughout the years of like its early run at Mifflin County.
oh yeah, but with school and with even with older schools, you have that everywhere. You have growing pains every year. Um, but with a new school and everything, I think you might have more of the smaller growing pains all happening at once. You know,
Yeah, no, absolutely, and you kind of mentioned it earlier too, because one of the things I will say I always enjoyed and was fascinated about Mifflin County was the adding of new sports, like a
hmm
lot of sports that no one ever thought about even thinking of before, and I thought that was really cool. Like I always enjoyed lacrosse. I thought it was cool that there was a swim team. I was like, man, that's pretty cool, swim team, because that's one of my favorite things to watch in the Olympics is swimming. So like you said, like just to see, and now we got bocce ball.
right? Yeah,
So it's like, oh, like it seems like there's, more options. Maybe like, I did like, playing soccer, but if, things aren't working out here, like maybe I'll give, this stuff a try. At least it gives something, new for the kids.
right. Definitely. And I like how the high schools involve the special needs athletes, involve them in the sports. That's one thing that's near and dear to my heart. Um, and to see these kids be able to compete with their fellow classmates and be rooted on by fans and stuff, that's one more closer step to, you know, everything, being equal across the board. And you got to love it.
No, man, I think it's cool. Like, especially now that it's been like 15 years, it seems like, I mean, and this is just my humble opinion, but it seems like everything's, I feel like everything's kind of like dying down. Everyone's kind of like, I think fitting in like some degree, somewhere in any sports or just being used to going to one school now. So it definitely is weird, but it is it's just crazy still to me to think that it's been 15 years now since that merger happened.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. And for us to be sports wise where we are now, you know, and build up a reputation in the different sports that we have, is definitely a good thing. And when people I've heard whenever I've actually heard from kids coming off a bus, heading into the gym at Mifflin County, that they're just so impressed. And um they just think that that school is just awesome. And it's nice to hear. And now with the new complex, the sports complex down below, it's another example of helping our kids want to, um, have pride, and enjoy, you know, some luxuries, because I love Mitchell Field, but it had its time, you know. Um, the gyms that they played in, like you said, were real small, with Indian Valley and Lewistown. So, now, like you said, we're at the point now where they're including different teams, and they're making um, the sports complex for these kids. And you know they're really trying to help these kids, these athletes, in their career.
Yeah, and let's talk about that a little bit because some of the highlights of some of the, especially like big like sporting events that's happened, and real quick, you kind of mentioned Mitchell Field. Like even back then, when I was in school in the 2000s, it looked pretty bad even back then. So
I mean, it was a nice feel for what it was in the 50s, but they really didn't improve much of the facility. And in fact, um I know whenever I went to school, the the stone track around the field, where you know a lot of people on Friday nights would walk around at Mitchell Field, that was the track. That was where the track and field team played or went. So, and this was in the 80s, and you're still using a beat up stone track, you know. Now granted, they did build one out in Indian Valley, and Lewistown was able to go out there and compete. But for so many years, they used that slippy stone track. And we thought when we were going through that, they build a better field, before, in a few years. But that never happened. And they got a lot of good football usage of it. And they also had some, like the JVFL, the Central Keystone. They were to use those fields for the younger guys, but it's time it came for updating much. Um,
well, yeah, and also too, and like when they brought in the new complex, I like the fact that it wasn't just for one sport.
right.
You could put soccer in there, you could put the field hockey team in there, and obviously you get cross country and track and field, so it wasn't just one sport. So I thought it was kind of like it helped everybody. So I thought that was like a cool idea and how they set it up for that.
Yeah, and two is they have it so that they could run two games at one time. You know, um, you could run a girls soccer game at the one field, and you could run a boys soccer game at the other. Um, and all you had to do was just walk down a hill. And if you wanted to see one game, and walk back up the hill to see the other game. So, and it was nice. Or if, say, they had soccer games, they played a lot of soccer games in the evening. Where before, with the soccer games and field hockey games that they had before, they they had to do it in the afternoon.
Yeah, and to add on to your point too is like not only could you have like multiple stuff going on, but the two fields, you can also add tennis with those courts in between.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, and what you also did, and not a lot of people take this into consideration too, is you saved a lot of money on field maintenance. You saved a lot of rain out dates. Um, because that's what once those fields got muddy, they stayed muddy for days.
Yeah,
And
I can attest to that because even like during my days at Lewistown, you can look at the fields and they were a lot worse when they were Mifflin County. But do you know the old soccer fields they had?
mm,
Oh my gosh, they were terrible.
so they were able to do that, and get away from cancellation of game, because athletic directors, boy, to cancel a game, try to shuffle in when they could play the makeup, and here you have the turf. So a lot of times, the only times that you really won't be able to play on it, as if it thunders and lightnings. Um, Monsoons, anything other than that, you can pretty much play on it.
No, and I always thought that was cool. Like I remember the first time I got to walk on like the tarps, and I still consider them they feel like carpet to me. But hey, if it can absorb the water and keep kids playing, then go for it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
But let's talk a little bit about the Husky sports. Since during its 15 year run so far, what has been some of your favorite moments?
Uh, well, gosh, there's been so many to narrow it down. Um, I know that some of the things that I followed would probably be like um the Hidley's run
Oh yes,
ships. Carter Smith, watching what he's doing now. Um, uh,
for me, I also got to mention Kylie Cubinson in track and field. You got the Chickalemies, and then you got JoJo's run for winning a state title in javelin.
yeah, and like so, there's been, that's one of the things too. Um, there's a lot of people on that wall that's won state championships. uh, the high school.
Yeah, and I would also throw in some shout out to the volleyball team. They had when they had I forget her name off the top of my head, but the coach for Mifflin County volleyball when they finally made the playoffs for the first time in their like with their program.
Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, I wish she would have been able to stay, but um, you know, but uh, but the volleyball team is still in good shape because they have some really talented kids coming up through. So just a little sneak peek for everyone out there to keep an eye on.
Well, there you go. But I guess my point that I guess I was trying to get to was like it was like the first time I saw how packed it was in that state in that gym, for that volleyball match. I was like, wow, it's like not too often you see that anymore, and that was amazing experience in my mind.
Okay. Well, mine just happened. Um, at the beginning of the year would be the first football game opening the new stadium. The crowd that was there was incredible. I mean, there was hardly any spaces available. Um, and to see these kids play with uh um with the football program being revitalized over the last couple of years, and the new field opening, it was just a real fun time to witness and be a part of history, being able to record it and be the one who wrote the article about the opening of it. So that would be my favorite moment, being able to be there for that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just like, and again, it's only been 15 years, and we've already had some incredible experiences, through multiple sports. So I think it's really cool to see, you know, in that such a short span, and really, 15 years. Really, it's weird for me to say that, but in 15 years, we've had some pretty cool moments and some, you know, special talent that come out of this.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely, and and I believe there's going to be more to come. Uh, there's a lot of young talent, and there's a lot of veteran talents here. Like I'm sure we're going to see a lot of um, state qualifiers in track on the boys' side, probably on the girls' side as well. Baseball team is looking like they're going to be battling for a District 6 berth in the playoffs. So um, there's a lot of good potential this year yet. And there's a lot of teams that are just regrouping. They're young. They're starting their rise, their ascend. So uh, it's always fun to watch. As I get older, though, the thing that I hate is that some of the moments that you did have, you forget about until we do something like this. Um, it's great to see that you know the school is providing the coaches and the training and the right kind of weight training, and they really look after their athletes, and you can tell that by that, like I said, by that wall of champions.
Yeah, no, I definitely can attest to that as well, and it's just cool to see, where it's where it's come from since it first started, and like all the craziness of how that happened, but just to see where it's at now is truly special, and I'm hoping, praying that it continues to build, because I think it could be really important, for building the morale and just building up the community in general.
Yeah, well, that kind of little off subject, but those fields can be used for playoff games, state playoff games, while they were used for district playoff games. So that's bringing people into the community and money into the community that a year ago or 2 years ago, whenever the things were being built, we didn't have. So, it's definitely going to help the economy.
Yeah, and I guess to finish off, let's go back to Lewistown and Indian Valley. When the schools merged and everything was like, I guess being auctioned off or just thrown away, I got a I heard that my old coach Ray Hopple, shout out to Coach Hopple, he had said like anybody that wanted their jerseys in baseball,
Uh-huh.
please let me know, or you can come down and just get one. I immediately grabbed my old baseball jersey. And to be honest with you, I wish I could have found like ways to get more of the old Lewistown stuff just to keep, just like memory wise. Did you ever try to get anything Lewistown wise, Kenny?
I am like a shopaholic. Uh, that I have places where I've gotten all kinds of goodies. I've gotten Lewistown warm up jerseys, and I've got warm up outfits. I've got um, a Lewistown jersey from the year that the kids went to the state championship. I've got softball helmet. I I I try to collect everything from the local area, um, just because where I'm finding them is like at Goodwills or in antique shops. So I when I see them, I keep them.
Oh, dude, that's awesome because I've always been trying to find stuff myself because I just thought it's just a cool historical item, and especially with some of the old days, because like there's people that have stuff from like Chief Logan Kish and like Roth Rock.
Yeah, well, I believe it or not, I've got a track outfit from Kish. I have I have two or three Chief Logan um, football jerseys. I have an Indian Valley baseball jersey, Lewistown baseball jersey. And I hope that one day, whenever I pass, to hopefully by then the Mifflin County Hall of Fame has an actual place, and I want to donate all that stuff that I have. Just keeping them until they have a place to go.
No, absolutely. That'd be sweet. And honestly, I would love to see that collection, Kenny. But no, I mean, it's just stuff like that. Just I don't know. It's cool to have memories and to see where everything has come, and hopefully, and and pray that everybody continues to grow, and hopefully we can get Mifflin County, continue to grow and have success in not just sports but just life in general. And it's definitely an interesting look back to say the least, huh, Kenny?
Oh, definitely, definitely. And if I could give any advice, um, we're talking about Mifflin or Lewistown and Indian Valley, and a word of advice is to know where you're going. You have to don't forget where you've been.
Most definitely, because I think the past is very important. And
It is, and you don't want to make the same mistakes, or you know what I mean. Just always remember that, I guess.
yes, for most certainly, and I think especially nowadays, because I think in order for us to grow for the future, we have to learn from the past. And you couldn't have said it any better than that, Kenny. And thank you so much for coming on my show and having this fun little trip down memory lane.
Thanks. I hope I didn't ramble too much. I have a tendency of doing that.
Hey, don't feel bad, but I think you did great.
Thanks.
But yeah, no, and I just like I said, I just hope and pray that Mifflin County continues to grow and just bring everybody closer together. And I think it could be we can really turn something. Excuse me, like they can really turn something in really big and special, I think.
No, I think it's we. I think you were right when you say we, because we're all fans of the kids, and and the people we're from the community. People we see in everyday life. They go to the school, and you know we support them as much as they support us. So I guess we're all in this together.
No, amen to that. And once again, thank you again, Kenny, for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
And to all of you watching, I love you all and God bless. Be safe, everybody.